Hello. Thought for a minute it wasn't going to go live, but it's gone live. Hello. Lovely to see you, beautiful being. My name is Oneness Evolving, and I'm out here in my front garden because I'm starting a Facebook Live, and the live has to get, onto Facebook and be shared out. So I always come out here, unless it's pouring with rain, and show you the world. And so here is the world. And as you can see, the clouds are moving. It's quite cold out here, at least by my standards. But the sky is beautiful. There is no rain. And I love looking at things like this through the bare branches of my cherry tree. So I'm just going to show you the garden, because I'm going to talk about our brainwave patterns. We have a daily brainwave pattern that our brain does every day, unless you're doing a night shift, and then it does it differently. But I can't start about that until at least, things have had a chance to propagate out onto the internet. So why am I looking at this? Well, this is my Deutzia tree, shrub thing, which gets pretty big, but I actually really like it in winter when all of the leaves have fallen off, because it's beautiful. I don't know if you can see, but the more recent twigs are this beautiful reddish brown, and then the older ones are lighter. And there's still a few green leaves there, and it'll all come up with flowers in summer. And look, you can see it's getting ready. See, the leaves are, and the little bud is right there. So everything's in cycles, but I just love this tree and how it behaves, really. And this is the time of the white violets that are just flowering like mad things now. It's dank and dark and cold here. But the violets are flowering, and they cover the ground, which is great, and they make the place smell good. So there's nothing missing, really. And look, this is the magnolia tree. I love all the shapes. Look, it really does zigzag. Now, I probably encouraged it to do that by pruning it the right way, but it's pretty cool as trees go. Look, this whole branch is really very windy. So I just love the shapes that you get with trees where the leaves fall off. And you get to see a different kind of beauty. So I'm enjoying that and sharing it with you now. And it's a lovely day. Hello, beautiful being. It's great to see you on. I so enjoy sharing this space with you. And I'm going to go inside in a minute, but just to enjoy the sunshine coming through the somewhat battered, the somewhat battered leaves of the Luculia, but aren't they fabulous with the red spine and just the detail, shadows. I love the winter light. And there's not really much else to show you here because it is winter and everything is, asleep. But that's the garden, and you can see that this is going to turn into something mad and crazy. Not too long from now, but everything starts with something growing and then it makes a flower. So I'm going to go inside now, out of the cold, and talk to you about what I've been writing today for the God of Me project. And God of Me is this thing, it's not a bad idea, it's my idea, it's my brainchild, which is to take the information that I've learned, which has totally changed me and is helping me every day to change more and more and to change my life, and to make it available in a form that is easily accessible by people who are really poor. Because, for some things you need to buy a book, or you need to buy a recording or a piece of software or something, and there are some people who just can't do that. And it's not because they don't have the money, although they don't have the money. They don't have a credit card. They don't have ID papers, so they can't get a credit card. And there's a part of me which finds it offensive that they don't have the information that I have. So like I say, it's a bit mad. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. But I'm building this thing on Patreon because Patreon just finally made sense to me. It took me a while to realise that was the place that I should be doing it. And so there's a link to my Patreon at the bottom of this, underneath this video, and you can go and have a look. And it's really just, at the moment, I'm just writing. And I'm writing the content that's going to go on a website. It may very well end up all going on Patreon, not going on a website at all. But I have to tell the story. I have to explain the information so that people can understand how to change. Because God of me is not about something religious. God of me is about me being God of me, boss of me, able to change me, able to choose how I think and feel and behave instead of kind of being kicked around by my life and my circumstances and feeling like I have no control and no ability to change anything that I don't like about myself. Because I can say, oh, well, because of this thing that's happened to me, or because of that thing that happened 20 years ago, or because of this thing that's coming up, I'm feeling bad. But what if that isn't how I have to feel, if I can just understand how I work, and then I have better tools and better understanding to actually make some changes? And so that's what God of me is about. So I've been talking about brainwaves, in case you hadn't noticed. This whole thing is about brainwaves because, excuse me, what I didn't understand when I was stuck being miserable is that however we're feeling is because of how our brain is working. And that's not to say that I'm a little pinhead and it all stops from here and nothing that happens from here down makes any difference. That's not true. But the thing is that we've got three brains. We've got a conscious mind, which lives in the crinkly walnut-shaped thing that people think of when you think of the brain. That's called the neocortex. It's the brain that we use to think and reason and analyze and be ethical and, all kinds of stuff. That's one brain, but we've got two more. There's another one inside that one called the limbic or the chemical or the mammalian brain. I'm trying to remember. It's got several names, and there's three of them. And that is the brain that runs our body. Oh, my God. And what I didn't understand is that brain, if I think a thought and I have a feeling about it, which, by the way, you cannot think a thought without having some kind of chemical response, because a feeling, by the way, is a chemical thing that happens in your body. And when you make a thought, you make chemistry. And that chemistry then goes to that limbic brain, the little brain that's inside the crinkly one inside. It's about the size of an apricot and there's, different structures. That thought makes chemistry that goes to that brain, and that brain sends signals to the rest of your body so that you have a feeling that goes with the thought you just had. And what that translates to is how your cells work, and whether they work well or whether they don't, i.e. whether you're sick or whether you're healthy. That's why it's kind of important to understand you've got three brains. So you've got the thinking brain, you've got the chemical brain, which runs your body. Your autonomic nervous system is another name for it. And then you have the habit brain, which sits at the back here. It's called the cerebellum. And that amongst many things, and these are all generalized things, because I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've learned these simple facts. And I am aware that I actually don't want to become a neuroscientist because then I'll get tied up in detail, but I do want to make sure that what I'm saying is correct. So the habit brain, among many other things, it helps us, like the skills, the things that we've learned, like walking, like talking, like playing an instrument, or being able to use a computer, or whatever. All those habitual things, there's a lot of it is stored in our habit brain. So we've got three brains. And what I've been talking about more recently is what our brain's doing, what's happening inside there that's got anything to do with how we're feeling and what's going on in our world. Never mind how we can change it and how that might change our lives. We do actually need to understand it first. So our brains, scientists can, and doctors, and they can measure what the brain's doing. It's called an EEG. And when you take an electroencephalogram, which is an EEG, you can find out that the brain is making waves, and they're electromagnetic waves, and they can be measured. They're very small, but they happen when the brain fires. And it's not just one neuron. There's a whole bunch of neurons. The neural net, it fires, and it makes a wave that can be measured. And what people discovered when they started measuring these is that the brain makes different kinds of brain waves. It makes very slow brain waves when we're asleep. It makes brainwaves a little bit faster when we're sort of just in the process of waking up and we don't know whether we're sleeping or awaking. I was like that this morning. I was like, oh, that weird thing is going on. And then I realised, I was dreaming. I came out of that sort of slightly faster. I'm not asleep. I was between sleep and awake. I was confused. And then I woke up and I thought, I was dreaming. But I was very much focused on my own world, and that's another brainwave state. And then talking to you out here, I'm outwardly focused. That's another brainwave state. And those 4 brainwave states are called delta, theta, alpha, and beta brainwaves. And we start off, or when we're sleeping, we're in delta. And when we're waking up and we don't know whether we're dreaming or awake, we're in theta. And when we start to wake up, but we're thinking, we sort of, how you lie in bed sometimes, or maybe you're sitting on a chair, or you're lying on the ground in the sunshine, or whatever, and you're comfortable. G'day, beautiful. Lovely to see you, Christine. You're comfortable and you're cozy, and you're just thinking inwardly about, you're just daydreaming or imagining or creating something. You're in alpha brainwaves to do that. You have to be in alpha brainwaves to think inwardly and to ignore the rest of your world. And if you then perk up and you wake up and you talk to people, or you're doing something or whatever, then your brain goes faster. It's in beta brainwaves. And so this is actually the daily brainwave pattern that everybody's brain does, unless they're doing night shift. And I mean, you still do it in night shift. It just doesn't happen at the same time. Naturally, it happens in response to the fact that it's dark and we're sleeping, and then the brain notices that there is light, and so it goes faster. The light signals the brain to speed up out of delta, get into theta. We're all dozy and not quite awake, and then it speeds up some more. We go to alpha, and then we get into beta, and we get busy, and we're doing our lives. And there's 3 kinds of beta brainwaves as well, and I talked about that last week. So go back to YouTube and have a look if you want to know what they are, because it's pretty cool what they do. And the piece that I wanted to write about this week, which I did write about this week, is the fact that although I actually wrote a lot, I got all of this stuff, and it's messy, and it's got gaps, and it's by no means finished, but I brain dumped a lot of stuff. And what I want to explain next, or what I wanted to explain next, is that we don't just stay in beta brainwaves all day long, and that surprised me the first time when I learned that. So, oh, really? You mean I'm not in beta brainwaves all day long? No, we actually alternate between beta and alpha brainwaves depending on what we're doing. And the other interesting thing, which I haven't written yet, but I need to, because we've been talking about the 5% of us that is conscious. Our conscious mind is only 5% of who you are, by the way. 95% of you is unconscious. I mean, you don't know it's there. And what is that? And so obviously when you're asleep, you're unconscious, right? You're out to it. And when you're in beta, so delta is unconscious. Beta, you're obviously conscious. You're out there, you're waking up to the world. In theta, you're still in your unconscious mind. Alpha, you're in both. You can be in either or. And so I do some examples in the writing. And for example, if you're doing a piece of art, you're really in your own mind. You're creating, you're picking colours, or you're sculpting, whatever you're doing, but you're in your own world. You're largely going to be making alpha brainwaves. I don't need an EEG on your brain to know that. You're just, you're working on something that you're creating inside yourself. On the other hand, if you're in a classroom and there's a teacher in the front and they're drawing diagrams and they're teaching you stuff, you are going to be in beta brainwaves while you are paying attention, because you've got to be outwardly focused. See, alpha's inward focused. I'm in my own world. I'm creating, I'm thinking, I'm working stuff out. In beta, that person up the front is teaching you stuff and you're paying attention. You're putting things together in your mind. You think, okay, I understand that concept and I understand that idea and I can see how they go together. And then there's a thing that happens when we're learning. Always. It's got to happen or we can't learn. There comes a point where you put a picture together in your mind and then you actually, and I've had this happen, and it's so annoying because you tune out to think about it and put it together, and you might be making notes, but you're going, oh, so it's like this and this, and I'm writing it down. And then you come back and the teacher's carried on and you've missed a bit. Hi, Andrea. Hey. And that annoys me because I have to tune out what's going on in the rest of the world in order to consolidate the idea and make the notes or whatever it is. But I can't keep on taking in the information while it's going on. And that we have to do that to learn. The brain can't make new connections unless you can slow down into beta. Zoning out. Yeah, so you're an alpha girl. And zoning out, I mean, that's, you go inward. And it happens to me sometimes. I'm in a meeting, or even when I'm working and I'm just suddenly, and I think, oh, I've gone into alpha. Because the brain's taking a rest and it's consolidating something, or you've just gone. And that's I haven't. This is not an example. This is something else that happens. But this hasn't happened to me because I don't do this. But for many people, if you're going on a long drive, you're driving away and you're just doing, you're on the road, and there's suddenly 50 miles has gone by, and it's like, where the hell did that 50 miles go? Who was driving? Where did you go? You went alpha. You went inward. And your unconscious mind, that other 95% of you that I haven't really written about, was driving the car. Which is a little bit scary, but actually, I mean, that's just normal. Yeah, well, you zone out because you're processing, right? So we are going between alpha and beta all day long. That's just what happens, and it has to. And for example, if you're engaged in an animated discussion with friends about, I don't know, something really interesting. I'm not going to choose a topic, because if I do, I'm not going to give you examples because it might just get your brain off on a thing. But if the topic is really interesting and you're exchanging ideas, I'm not talking about an argument. I'm talking about something that you're pulling apart and trying to work out. It's like, well, do you think that? Do you think that? What do you think? Oh, I think blah, 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 blah. And you explain and you're thinking about, and then the other people are thinking about what you're saying, and they're listening to you like you're the teacher at the front of the classroom, and they're going inside and internalizing it and thinking about, do I agree, do I not agree? If that discussion is really interesting and you're really engaged in it, you are more in beta than you are in alpha, unless you get really trying to work something out and you zone out, you go and you think about it, and then you say, but what about this? And you've gone back into beta again. So this is what we do. There is this dance between alpha and beta all day long. And something I forgot to say, talking about the learning situation, because this is something that many people, they label themselves as dumb or stupid or I couldn't learn or if a child is stressed, whatever the reason, be it good, bad or indifferent, they can't slow their brain down out of beta enough to make alpha brainwaves to learn. Many people have trouble learning in school, and they still have trouble learning as adults because their brain is amped up. It's in the stress response. And so they can't make new connections in their brain because they simply can't slow their brain down out of that emergency mode enough to learn something. So it's so interesting. I find it a revelation to understand this, to understand myself better. Oh my God, yes. The subtitles are murder for me. I have to work really hard to ignore that, that visual information, the thing that pops up, the thing that moves. For some people, they don't even notice them. See, my brain is wired to really notice that stuff. I don't know why. It just always has been. And when it happens and I need to ignore it, it takes an enormous amount of energy for me to do that. I had it happen today and I just thought, I can't lose it now. I need to just do what I'm doing and breathe through my heart. And that really helped, because when you breathe through your heart, put your awareness there, it creates coherence and it flows up to the brain. Yeah. So you see, you want to focus in. You're making my brain go off in all sorts of interesting directions, but I want to keep telling you that, they're a killer because it's a stimulus and we want to read them because we're wired to read words, right? So that's our daily brainwave pattern, and that's the dance between alpha and beta, and I love understanding that because that was a surprise to me. It was really cool information. But the thing that I haven't done yet in the writing is to actually say, what the hell is our 5% conscious mind? Really? What is that? Because everybody's blithering on about, and I mean, there's research that shows that 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 is hardwired programs. It's automatic. We don't think about it like you're driving down the road and nobody's behind the wheel. You're just going down the road. We are like that in our lives. We really are. So what the hell? Who's in charge? Well, that's the 95%. But if that's the 95% that's driving the car when you zone out for 50 miles, and that happens, what's the 5% of us? Really? Hi, Laurie. Audrey, lovely to see you, sweetie. The 5%, keeping it very simply, very simple. It's really made up of two things, and there are fancy names for them, right? There are declarative memories and there are non-declarative memories, and there is experience. And declarative memories are memories that you can declare. They are things that you can remember and you know about yourself. So I give a whole lot of examples about the fact that my body is 155 centimetres tall. I know that about me. Yeah, I'm a shorty. I know that I like to dig in my garden. I know that I went to university to learn to play the violin and become a professional violinist. And then I learned, I know about myself that I realised I didn't like doing that and I stopped it and everyone was astonished. You know, I just know these things about myself. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I know that I speak English really well and that I write English and I know a few words of Maori and I don't know any other languages and I never wanted to learn any. You know, I know I'm married. I don't have kids because I chose not to. All those things. That's just my autobiographical self. Those are the memories that I can declare about me. They are things that I have learned, and the other half of it is they are things that I have experienced. So I know that on my first day of school, I had a really horrible experience and it was nobody's fault. I just went into severe separation anxiety and it was a traumatic day for me. That was something that happened. It's a conscious memory. It made enough of a splash that I have remembered it always. And of course, that had very big unconscious memory knock-on effects. I might talk about some of that a little bit when I write about the unconscious mind. Because, I was 5, right? So big splash, big experience, huge amounts of emotion, all that stuff, and it was nobody's fault, but it went in and it programmed me to feel separate and scared and afraid and like everybody was at me my entire life until I changed it. So our 5% is made up of things we know and have learned and the skills we have and things that we experience. Stuff we know, stuff we experience, knowledge and experience, declarative memories and semantic memories. Right, declarative being the things I remember and I know I've done, and semantic memories is knowledge. So I'm trying to use a few words. And of course, I learned all of this from Dr. Joe Dispenza, but I'm putting it in my words. And so I like to talk about it because I'm not a neuroscientist and I want to keep this really simple. It's things we know, things we've experienced. That's it. Memories are totally suspect. We make them up. And I am quite convinced, the more I denature that whole traumatic thing that happened on the day that I was 5, because of course you go to school on your first day of your fifth year, which is bloody crazy, really. No child's nervous system is ready to do that. But anyway, they do it, and most kids are fine. I wasn't. So I am sure that I don't remember how that actually happened. I just know how I remembered it. And, the old story of, the fish that got away, the big one that got away, doesn't it get bigger every time that story gets told? We make shit up. We totally do. And there is research to show that about 50% of our long-term memories are manufactured. They are nothing to do with what actually happened. But we see them through the filter of that 95% of ourselves that is unconscious, and that helps a lot to shape how our memories are. So, yeah, great spanner. Thank you, Andrea. So the 5% is the things we know and the experiences that we have. And my next job, next week, is to fill in more gaps in this story and hopefully to get to writing about the same kinds of things for the 95% of us that's unconscious. What actually is that? And what does it look like in our life? What the hell does it do all day long? I realise I haven't talked about what the hell our conscious mind does all day long. But it's actually, our conscious mind does that dance between alpha and beta that I was talking about at the beginning. It means that we can interact in our world, our conscious mind, those things that we know, the skills that we have, the things we studied and learned, and the experiences that we've had, they allow us to exist and to live in our world. I mean, if you didn't have the things that you know, if you didn't have your skills and memories and your experience and your philosophical database in your mind, your knowledge base that you draw on when somebody asks you a curly question or you're facing a problem, you think, well, how am I going to solve this? It's your analytical mind that responds to that. The unconscious mind does a whole lot of other stuff. Really important, really necessary. But just to sum up, this is the reason why change is so hard, because in your 5% of your conscious mind, you can say, I want to be like this. And the 95% of you that you don't know is there is saying something else. And you got to make change here, and you got to make change here. And that's why it's challenging, because you got to know the way in. You got to know the door. And I'm going to be reading the best parts of what I wrote today to my patrons in a couple of days. I do that on a Friday evening. I sit down and I choose the best piece, which may not be the final version, you know. Sometimes I read them that's like this week, and then next week is different. But I always read them what I've written, so they get the detail and they get the flow of what this thing is going to be. And that's one of the things I do for my patrons. I'm still working out exactly what I do for the people who support me on Patreon. But if you'd like to hear the detail and to be part of this journey and to support this crazy project, because I've got really no idea what it's going to look like, just know that I'm doing it and it's like a calling, then please jump on, take a look at Patreon. And if you're on YouTube, I want to thank you for sticking with me, for sharing the journey, and feel free to like, share and subscribe. And if you've got questions, for goodness sake, ask, because I love answering questions. I'm just a thing explainer. That's what I like to do, is explain things. So I want to thank you. I have so enjoyed having you here, throwing spanners and asking questions and laughing with me with this cool information. And I look forward to doing it again next week. Until then, much love. Bye for now.